This is why you need to know about Aisha. She wasn't just the Prophet's wife, she was a leader and scholar. Aisha was known for her wisdom, courage, and deep knowledge. She taught thousands, shared countless sayings of the Prophet, and inspired generations. Her influence still shapes how we understand Islam today. Aisha Siddiqua, R.A., the most outstanding female scholar of Islam and a role model for Muslim women who was Aisha, R.A. Her name was Aisha, her given names were Siddiqua and Humaira, her kunyat was Abdullah, and her title was Mother of the Believers. She was the daughter of Abu Bakr, R.A., and was related to the Prophet, SAW, in the 8th generation. Allah, SW, conferred the title of Mother of the Believers on her as well as on the other wives of the Prophet, SAW. Until then, she was known as Abdullah. The Arabs had a custom of naming a person after their children. She had no offspring of her own. Once she mentioned to the Prophet, SAW, that all his other wives had offspring by whose names they were called, so who could she be called after? He replied, "After your nephew Abdullah." 1. After that day, she was called Abdullah. She belonged to a family that needs no introduction. Her father, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, R.A., was the closest friend of the Prophet, SAW. He was the first man to accept Islam among men. His services to Islam are well known to all. He had the distinction of becoming the first caliph of Islam after the death of the Prophet, SAW. Her birth. There are different opinions surrounding the birth of Aisha, R.A. Nothing can be concluded as the last word. 2 opinions are more popular than the rest. According to the first opinion, she was born at the end of the 5th year of prophethood. The second one places her birth 5 years before the advent of Islam. Both views are highly contradictory. The author sides with the first opinion because of reasons which will be mentioned later. Her childhood and early life. Aisha, R.A., was a fair, rosy-complexioned, robust and pretty child. She was active and playful and very fond of her toys. Her friends always surrounded her. They used to share a common love for dolls. Sometimes when the Prophet, SAW, used to appear, they used to hide here and there along with their dollies. He used to call out to them to come out and play. Once Aisha, R.A., was playing with her dolls as usual when he passed by. Among the toys was a horse with wings on either side. He asked her, "Aisha, what is this?" She replied, "It's a horse." The Prophet, SAW, said, "But horses do not have wings." She replied, "Why? Suleiman's AS horses had wings." He smiled at this answer. 2. Besides playing with dolls, another pastime was her fondness for swings. But her childhood did not merely pass in frolic and play. The house of Abu Bakr, R.A., was affected by every trial and tribulation of Islam. The severity of the situation in the early days of Islam forced Abu Bakr, R.A., to migrate to Abyssinia. He could not complete his journey due to some unknown reason and returned to Mecca, but Aisha, R.A., remembered this incident with all the minor details. One can imagine what her childhood must have been like from this statement of hers. "As soon as I became aware of my surroundings, I found my parents deeply involved in religion, and not a single day passed by when the Prophet, SAW, did not visit our house morning and evening." Her nikah, the first wife of the Prophet, SAW, was Hazrat Khadija, R.A. She was his devoted companion, sharing his sorrows, constantly supportive. She met her last in the 10th year of prophethood, which was a source of great misery for the Prophet, SAW. One day, Hazrat Khawla bint Hakim, the wife of Usman bin Mazun, R.A., came to the Prophet, SAW, and recommended that he marry again. She suggested the names of Aisha, R.A., and Hazrat Sauda, R.A. The Prophet, SAW, gave his assent for taking the matter further on both counts. Hazrat Khawla approached Hazrat Abu Bakr, R.A., and Ruman, R.A., for Aisha's hand. Hazrat Abu Bakr, R.A., was surprised because he considered the Prophet, SAW, to be his brother, so how could this match be possible with a niece? When the Prophet, SAW, heard of this confusion, he said, "Abu Bakr is my brother in Islam, and in such kind of brotherhood, nikah is permissible with the offspring." 3. After hearing Prophet's SAW point of view, Hazrat Abu Bakr was satisfied on this end, but a nagging doubt persisted because Aisha's betrothal had been arranged with the son of Jubair bin Matam. So it was necessary to talk to him in this regard. Jubair's family had yet not converted, and they themselves ended this commitment, as they did not want any trouble in the family. Hence, now there were no more anxieties in finalizing the marriage with the Prophet, SAW. Hazrat Aisha's nikah was solemnized with the Prophet, SWA, in the month of Shawwal, the 10th year of prophethood when she was 6 years old. The dower was fixed at 500 dirhams. The nikah was performed in such a simple fashion that Hazrat Atiyah narrates, Aisha was playing with her friends outside. Her nanny fetched her and brought her inside. Her father performed her nikah himself. According to Aisha, RA herself, when my nikah was performed, I myself did not know that I had been married. When my mother started to restrict my comings and goings with friends, I understood what had happened. Then my mother also explained to me. After reading this episode, it seems likely that Aisha was indeed 6 years old at the time of her marriage. However, there exists some difference of opinion over her age, as some claim Aisha's age to be 15 years, although it seems strange how a 15-year-old girl could be playing outside when her nikah was performed, and how could she be unaware of what was happening? Imam Muslim's narration is also in favor of this, wherein Aisha, RA, claims her age to be 6 years at the time of nikah and 9 years at the time of rukhsati. She further added that at this time, her dolls were with her. After her nikah, she stayed in Mecca for almost 3 years and 7 to 8 months in Medina after Hijrat. After the Prophet's SWA migration with Abu Bakr, she, along with her mother, sister and brother, also headed for Medina. Her wedding. On reaching Medina, Aisha, RA, along with her relatives, stayed in the compound of Banu Haris bin Khizraj for 7 to 8 months. The climate of Medina did not suit the Meccans, and many of the Muhajirins fell sick. Hazrat Abu Bakr, RA, and subsequently Aisha also fell prey to illness. Aisha's case was so severe that she lost her hair as well. By Allah's mercy, they all recovered. Abu Bakr approached the Prophet, SWA, for the wedding, who mentioned that he had no money to pay Aisha the dower that had been fixed. As on every occasion, Abu Bakr, RA, came forward to help and offered the amount to the Prophet, SWA, so that the wedding could take place without delay. The Prophet, SWA, sent the dower money to Aisha. The women of the Ansar came to congratulate Aisha and to see her off on the occasion. Ruman called out to her daughter. Aisha was out on the swings with her friends. She came running on hearing her mother's voice. She washed Aisha's face and styled her hair nicely, then made her into a bride. A few moments later, the Prophet, SWA, also arrived. In this way, Aisha, RA, was wedded off in a very simple manner in the month of Shawwal and came to the Prophet's SWA house. No ignorant tribal customs were adhered to in the wedding ceremony. Traditionally, the Arabs did not marry in the month of Shawwal, which they considered inauspicious. Aisha's nikah and wedding both took place in this month. The Arab custom of lighting a fire in front of the bride was not followed, nor was the wedded couple seated in the howdah on a camel. The payment of the dower was considered sufficient to take the bride home. Domestic affairs and management of the household. As Abu Bakr, RA, was a well-off man, Aisha grew up in comfortable surroundings. The house she married into was hardly a palatial one. It was the humble dwelling of a prophet. It was a small room adjoined to Masjid-e-Nabi, and the door of the house opened into the mosque. The room was barely 8 feet long. The walls were made of mud and the roof of palm leaves and branches. A blanket was draped over the roof to protect the room from rainwater. The ceiling was so low that a man could touch it if he extended his arm. The total belongings of the household were a charpoy, a mat, a bed, a pillow, 2 pots to keep dates and flour, a container for holding water, and a bowl. If the Prophet, SWA, had desired wealth, Allah would have poured abundance of gold and silver for his beloved. But he preferred the life of poverty for himself and his family. 40 or so nights used to pass often without the stove being lit in the houses of his wives. Aisha herself relates that the Prophet's SWA family never ate heartily for a full 3 days at a stretch. Generally, their meals consisted of mere dates and water. The companions of the Prophet, SWA, often used to send gifts and money to the Prophet, SWA, but he used to distribute them among the needy before they even had a chance to come into his household. Often the Prophet, SWA, used to come home and inquire if there was anything to eat, and he got the reply, "O Rasul Allah, nothing except Allah and his Prophet." He used to generally fast on such days. And Aisha, RA, used to follow suit. These were not merely the circumstances of the early period, this state continued throughout his life. After the conquest of Khyber, the Prophet, SWA, fixed a monthly stipend for his wives, but the generosity of his family members knew no bounds. The monthly rations were exhausted in a few days. Far from complaining or being unthankful to Allah, the daughter of Abu Bakr had molded herself into the way of the Prophet, or SAW. As Hazrat Aisha, R.A., was young in age, she was often forgetful about household matters. Often she used to knead the dough, keep it aside, and used to doze off, and a stray goat would come and eat it up. One day she made the dough into small cookies. While waiting for the Prophet, she dozed off. A neighbor's goat came in and gobbled them all up. She was not an expert in cooking food, but this does not mean that she took no interest in household affairs. In fact, she herself cleaned the house, kneaded the dough, and made bread. She took special care of the needs of the Prophet, She used to wash his clothes with her own hands. Aisha, R.A., used to wash his hair lovingly and comb it. She also applied perfume on his clothes. The Prophet, used to be particular about his miswak. She paid special attention to all his requirements. When there were guests at her house, she was very hospitable to them. Many a times the Prophet, used to bring guests home, and she would do everything possible for their comfort. In the words of Hazrat Qais Ghafari, one day the Prophet said, "Let's go to Aisha's house." We came to the Hujra with him. The Prophet, said, "Aisha, please give us some food." She brought some food. He asked for something else to eat. She got some harira. He again asked for something else. She presented some milk. After that, she brought some water in a bowl. For Hazrat Aisha, R.A., not only did her best to perform her household chores, but also tried to support and honor the family ties and relations of the Prophet, He had 4 daughters, out of whom she had the privilege of spending more time with Fatima, R.A. She was Aisha's stepdaughter, but she was very kind to Fatima throughout her lifetime. She participated wholeheartedly in Fatima's wedding. Aisha always used to be high in her praises. Till the very end, they enjoyed an especially cordial relationship. Love for and obedience towards her husband. The relationship between Aisha and the Prophet, is known to all. She never went against any of his wishes. She did her best to serve him and took special care of his comfort and needs. She also bore the agony of being one of 9 wives. She describes her feelings in these words: "I did not see the Prophet, for one night, so I thought that he had decided to visit some other wife. When I found him, he was in ruku or sajda reciting, 'You are pure, I praise you, there is no God save you.' I said to myself, 'May my parents be sacrificed for you. You are engaged in some other work, and I was thinking of other things.'" 5. Once during a journey, Hazrat Aisha, R.A., and Hazrat Hafsa, R.A., exchanged their camels. When the Prophet, came to Aisha's camel, he found Hafsa and started engaging in conversation with her. Aisha's consternation was worth seeing. When the party stopped for a break, she stepped on the grass barefooted, saying, "If a scorpion bit me, it would be better than being separated from my beloved." 6. Except for a few isolated incidents, she enjoyed a pleasant relationship with all the other wives. She used to always praise the qualities of the other wives. If there was an argument, she used to stay well within her limits, and the matter would quickly resolve itself. Aisha was very careful about the likes and dislikes of the Prophet. If he found a matter distasteful, it would also aggravate her. Once a woman came and reported that some women were lamenting and wailing at Jafar's house. The Prophet, replied, "Stop them from doing it." She came back and stated that they were not agreeing to stop. The Prophet, said, "Throw ashes at their faces." She went and again returned with some statement. Aisha was looking out from a crack in the door. She got agitated at the woman for giving agony to the Prophet, without cause. She was not doing what he was telling her to do, nor was she leaving him alone. 7. Once the Prophet was resting with his head in her lap when Abu Bakr, R.A., came in and slapped his daughter in a fit of anger. Aisha, R.A., states that she did not move, only because she was afraid that the Prophet's sleep would get disturbed. 8. Aisha used to obey the Prophet, with complete devotion. Once the Prophet, entered her house and glanced at a curtain which she had put up. It had pictures on it. The color of his face changed and he tore the curtain up. Then he said, "The worst torment on the day of judgment shall befall those who try to draw pictures of Allah's creation." According to another tradition, Aisha, R.A., cut up the curtain later and made pillows out of it. 9. Her love for the Prophet, was not a one-sided affair, but he also used to value and love her greatly. He used to sit on the same mat as Aisha while eating and used to eat out of the same plate. Their mutual love was so intense that he used to chew the bone for the same end where Aisha had left it. He used to drink water from the same place where her lips had touched the cup. Once a neighbor invited him for food. He asked, "Is Aisha going to be there?" The man said no. The Prophet, SWA, declined the invitation. He again invited him. The Prophet, SWA, again asked the same question. The third time the neighbor got wise and invited Aisha as well, and the Prophet, SWA, readily agreed to come to his house. 10. The Holy Prophet, SWA, used to humor Aisha a lot. Light-hearted jokes and joyful remarks made for a blissful atmosphere in the Prophet's SWA house. When Aisha used to flaunt her womanly airs, he used to put up with her in a patient manner. Once he commented, "Aisha, I can tell whether you are happy or angry with me. When you are upset, you swear on the God of Ibrahim, and when you are happy, you swear on the God of Muhammad." Aisha, R.A., replied, "O Rasul Allah, only my tongue stops reciting your name." 11, meaning that her heart never ceased to love him. These and other such incidents very clearly indicate that the Prophet, SWA, was very considerate towards his wives and took out time to be with them. He used to care about their smallest needs, in spite of being busy with the training of his ummah, the constant warfare with the enemies of Islam, and his extensive worship in the nights. From racing round the block with Aisha to letting her watching Bedouin spear shows, the Prophet, SWA, used to handle his wives according to their nature, age, and maturity. The idea behind taking a glimpse into the private life of the Prophet, SWA, is that Muslim men should consider him as a role model. They should examine their own behavior with their wives and evaluate it against the Prophet's SWA example. In spite of the status granted to him by Allah, it was remarkable that he used to give so much importance to the feelings of his wives. He attempted to keep them all happy, and he made an effort to maintain an atmosphere of love and friendship with each one of them. He is an ideal example for Muslim men. It is unfortunate that, common man aside, even Muslim men who are religiously knowledgeable show so little concern in this aspect of their lives. Far from being ashamed at their careless behavior with women, they are not even aware of the gravity of their shoddy treatment, nor do they take steps to improve their callous behavior. The strange part is that they conveniently take full measures to know and exercise their rights, but when it comes to their duties, they turn a blind eye towards their responsibilities. They think they've done their part by merely giving their women food, shelter, and clothing. Most women are deprived of love, affection, and consideration that are their basic rights. The Prophet, SWA, had a wonderful attitude towards all his wives. It is true, he was partial towards Aisha, R.A., as far as his feelings were concerned. Hence his prayer, "O Allah, I try to be fair in matters which are in my control, meaning money, time, and gifts. But forgive me for that which is beyond my control, meaning love for Aisha." 12. Once, when his wives pressurized the Prophet, SWA, for increase in their monthly allowance, which was not an unjustified request on their part as the economic situation of the Ummah had improved and they were still on a meager allowance, Allah revealed the verses which allowed the wives to either part with the Prophet, SWA, or stay with him under the same stringent conditions. In this regard, the Prophet, SWA, consulted Aisha, R.A., first, advising her not to give a hasty reply and to consult her parents too. Without any hesitation, Aisha chose to stay with the Prophet, SWA, and added that there was no need for any consultation. The other wives also gave the same reply. Her education, Aisha, R.A., received her early education at the hands of her noble father, Abu Bakr Siddiq. She had inherited a love for poetry, history, and genealogy, besides receiving religious education. At a very tender age, she was married to the Prophet, SWA. Proper education, therefore, started after her marriage. Her memory was so startling that she remembered childhood events exactly as they took place, till the very end of her lifetime. Whenever she used to hear any verses of the Quran from her parents, she used to commit them to her memory. She relates that when the following verse of Surah Qamar was revealed, albeit the hour is their promised time, and the hour will be calamitous and bitter, 54:46. She was playing at that time. In Arabia, education was not a common phenomenon, and even more rare was the woman who was literate. Aisha, R.A., had learned how to read, and she used to read the Quran. One tradition observes that she knew how to write as well. She used to answer her letters herself. She was also interested in learning the Tibb method of alternate medicine, which was in practice in those days. There was no formal education of Tibb, but she used to put in her memory bank all the medicines prescribed for various illnesses by the Tibb doctors. Besides regular knowledge of worldly subjects, the religious education of Aisha, R.A., was continuously taking place. Her house opened at one end into Masjid-e-Nabi. She was minutely aware of all the discourses being conducted there. Plus, Aisha's nature was such that she would keep on questioning the Prophet, SAW, till she was satisfied. He never used to feel irritated at her inquisitiveness, and used to encourage her quest for truth. The books of hadiths are filled with examples of these sessions between Aisha, R.A., and the Prophet, SAW. It is not practically possible to mention them all, but we would like to relate some instances from which the reader can gather Aisha's immense thirst for religious knowledge. Once a Jewish woman came to Aisha's house. She spoke about the torment of the grave and prayed that Allah should protect Aisha, R.A., from the same. Aisha asked the Prophet, SAW, about the torment of the grave. He affirmed that there would be punishment in the grave. Aisha says that after this incident the Prophet, SAW, did not say a single prayer without asking Allah for refuge from the suffering in the grave. 13. Once she asked the Prophet, SAW, O Rasulallah, some predictions of the foretellers come out to be true. He replied, These true things are grasped by the jinn who relate it to the soothsayers and they add embellishments to them. 14. Once a man wanted to meet the Prophet, SAW. He said, Let him come in, he is the black sheep of his family. When he came and sat inside, the Prophet, SAW, gave him his undivided attention. When he left, Aisha, R.A., was surprised and inquired, O Rasul Allah, you do not consider him to be a good person, but when he came, you spoke to him in such a courteous manner. The Prophet, SAW, replied, He is the worst kind of man who people avoid because of his bad manners. 15. Besides day-to-day affairs, she used to get information about historical events and famous personalities. Once she questioned Prophet SAW about Abdullah bin Jadaan, who was a kind-hearted and generous chief of the Quraysh, but a disbeliever. Aisha, R.A., asked, O Rasul Allah, Abdullah bin Jadaan used to be generous to his people in the days of ignorance, and he used to feed the poor. Will his good deeds benefit him at all? The Holy Prophet SAW replied, No, Aisha, not for a single day did he pray to his Lord for forgiveness on the day of judgment. 16. After the Battle of Uhud, she asked the Prophet SAW one day, O Prophet of Allah, was any day more severe on you than the day of Uhud? She got the reply, I have suffered much at the hands of your people, and the most anguish I felt was on the day of Uqba. Then he proceeded to relate the incident that took place in Taif. Besides the Taif episode, the details of the migration of the Prophet, SAW, also reached us through Aisha, R.A. Indeed, she must have heard of the incident from her father who had accompanied the Prophet, SAW, on this journey. Besides regular question and answer sessions, Aisha, R.A., also recorded in her memory every action of the Prophet, SAW, every word uttered by him, his explanations about daily happenings, and his ways of worship. The deep thirst for knowledge, a keen mind, a sensitive and inquiring nature, and loads of self-confidence paved the way for Aisha's comprehensive education. Any lack was compensated for by the constant guidance of the Prophet, SAW, and his keen attention towards her. Her upbringing. The Prophet, SAW, gave special importance to the education and upbringing of his young wife, knowing what a remarkable intellect she possessed. It has been seen usually that social reformers who impact the lives of thousands of people often neglect their own household, who remain deprived of the benefit of their teachings. It is rightly said that there are shadows beneath the light. Aisha, R.A., states, It was a habit of the Prophet, SAW, that when he used to come home, he used to say in a loud voice, If you add 2 planes of riches to the wealth of Adam, he will covet a third. Only ashes thrown on his face can end his greed for more. Allah says that he has given wealth to mankind so that they can remember him and they should help the needy. Allah turns to those who turn to him. 17. The Prophet, SAW, used to give brief but useful advice, always appropriate to the occasion. Hazrat Aisha, R.A., was an avid student of theology, and it had been made very clear to her by the Prophet, SAW, that every man had to strive to do his own good deeds, and any relation or nearness to the Prophet SAW would be of no benefit in the hereafter. Once Aisha, R.A., burst into tears upon remembering the torment of the fire. The Prophet SAW asked her why she was crying. She answered that she had recalled hellfire and thus started crying, and also asked him if he would remember his family members on the Day of Judgment. The Prophet SAW replied, "On 3 occasions no one will remember anyone. The first, when we are near the balance, till we find out whether our side is heavy or light. The second, when we will be told to come and read our books, till we find out where we will receive our book, in our right or left hand or from behind our back. And the third, when we cross the Pul Sarat." 18 Aisha, R.A., was the beloved of the Prophet SAW. In spite of that, whenever he used to feel that she was in the wrong, he used to lightly admonish her. Once a belonging of hers got stolen and she started to curse the thief. The Prophet SAW stated, "Don't lessen the thief's punishment." 19. Meaning to say that laying curses on the thief would lessen his torment and decrease her blessing. Hence, it is better to exercise patience. Once a few Jews came to the Prophet SAW. They greeted him by saying, "Assalamu alaikum." On the face of it, they were offering the traditional greeting, but actually they were wishing death on the Prophet SAW, as the Arabic word Sam means death. The Prophet SAW replied, "Walaikum," meaning same to you. Hazrat Aisha got upset and retorted, "Death to you and all terrible things." The Prophet SAW chided her, "O Aisha, verily Allah takes gentleness as his ally in all matters." She reminded him of what the Jews had said. He replied, "I also returned their greeting in the same spirit." 20. Meaning whatever they said was turned back onto them. One of the Prophet's SAW wives, Safia, was a bit short in stature. One day Aisha, R.A., remarked, "Oh Rasul Allah, stop it, Safia is so short." He chided, "You said such a thing that if it were to be added to the waters of the ocean, it would blend with it," meaning it would contaminate the entire ocean water. Aisha was surprised. "Oh Rasul Allah, SAW, I merely stated a truth about a person." She got the reply, "If I am given a bit of this and that, I would never relate it." 21. Meaning to say this is a big sin, and even if he got a big amount of money for it, he would never say those words. Aisha thus received her moral training at the hands of the Prophet SAW through guidance, mild rebukes, and corrections. She usually joined the Prophet SAW in his supererogatory worship and also received practical guidance at every step. The event of Ifk. The hypocrites of Medina were in a constant state of agitation, their purpose being to cause destruction to the Muslims. On the political and military fronts, their efforts bore no fruit. So they turned their attention to the inside happenings in Medina and used to come up with new schemes every now and then. At times, they tried to generate a conflict between the migrants, Muhajirin, and the helpers, Ansars. They would also try to create differences among the Ansar tribes. Till now, they had no success in their ploys. But soon, nature gave them a chance to transform an ordinary event into the vilest slander, and thus they got a chance to destroy the moral fiber of Muslim society in Medina that was in the infant stage. In the Battle of Bani Mustalak, Aisha, R.A., had accompanied the Prophet SAW. She had borrowed a necklace from her sister. At some point, when the troops broke their journey, she went a bit far to answer the call of nature, and her necklace accidentally slipped off somewhere. On returning to her palanquin, she found the ornament missing and went off to find it. Meanwhile, the camp moved on and did not notice the absence of Aisha, as she was very lightweight, and her palanquin did not feel different. When Aisha, R.A., returned to the spot after finding the piece of jewelry, the party had moved on. The sensible thing was to wait there till someone would come back to fetch her. She sat on the ground and dozed off, wrapping her cloak around her. Safwan bin Matal, a companion of the Prophet SAW, had been following the armed forces at a distance so that he could pick up anything left behind them by mistake. He caught sight of Aisha, R.A., and recognized her, as he had seen her before the verses of the veil had been revealed. He started reciting Inna Lillah, so that she got up startled. Safwan gathered that she had gotten separated from the rest of the party somehow. He made his camel sit, and Aisha got onto it. At the other end, when the troops came to rest at a point, they were surprised to see Aisha, R.A., proceeding towards them on a camel being led by Safwan. It was hardly something disturbing, but before the situation could be explained, the leader of the hypocrites, Abdullah bin Ubay, started to spread false propaganda. He used to go and whisper in the ears of different people that, God forbid, Aisha, R.A., was no longer a virtuous woman. The hypocrites had at last found the perfect opportunity to create a furor among the Muslim camps. The malicious gossip against Aisha, R.A., proved to be another major trial for the Prophet, SWA. As expected, most of the Muslims did not believe in the rumors that were being circulated, but some weak-minded believers did fall prey to them. The matter concerned that Prophet's own household and was so delicate that it could not be raised up in public. One day, Aisha, R.A., who until then was oblivious to what was happening around her, got wind of the scandal. Her mind reeled in utter shock that people could stoop so low as to falsely accuse her of all people of such a heinous sin. Her parents confirmed the rumors when she went to visit them. Both of them tried to console her, but they could not succeed in lessening her anguish. She contracted severe fever and came to live with her parents after taking permission from the Prophet, SAW. She was in the grip of immense mental tension and trauma, and every day was fresh agony to her. Her nights were sleepless with worry. The Prophet SAW was beset with a dilemma himself. While he believed that Aisha was innocent, he wanted witnesses to the truth and a strong proof of the innocence of his wife, so that the matter could be dispelled forever without any further consequences. He consulted Hazrat Usama and Hazrat Ali in this matter. The former strongly pleaded the case of Aisha, R.A., and took the view that she was innocent. Ali, looking at the agitated condition of the Prophet, suggested that there was no dearth of suitable women for the Prophet, or SAW. He also suggested that her maid should be asked about her character. The maidservant was called and questioned about Aisha, R.A. She did not really understand the matter and said, "There is no other bad quality in her except that she is young, she goes to sleep, and the goat eats up the flour." When explained the gravity of the situation, she was shocked. "Subhanallah, I know her as well as a goldsmith recognizes pure gold." A whole long month had passed when the Prophet, SAW, visited Abu Bakr's house. He spoke to his wife. "O Aisha, I have received such and such news about you. If you are innocent, then Allah will soon reveal your innocence. If you have sinned, you must repent and ask for forgiveness. When a sinner repents and asks for forgiveness, Allah forgives him." 22. Hazrat Aisha, R.A., listened to his words in silence. Then she asked her mother and father to plead her case. Both gave her a helpless look, because they did not know what to say. Finally, she stood up for herself and uttered the words that are so famous in Islamic history. "By God, if I say I have not committed any sin, it would not make any difference. And if I say that I have committed a sin, you people will believe that I have admitted my mistake, when God knows I am innocent. I know of no better words than what the father of Yusuf, A.S., uttered. I will acquire the best of patience, and Allah is my supporter against what you are saying." As soon as she finished her little speech, Allah sent down his holy verses from above the 7 heavens and absolved her of any blame. He stated her innocence and elevated her to the enviable position that Muslims till the last day will read these verses in the Quran, and Aisha, R.A., will be remembered as a pure and chaste woman. Aisha, a widow. Aisha, R.A., was 18 years old and had been married for only 9 years when the Prophet, SAW, contracted a terminal disease. As was his habit, he used to spend one night with each of his wives, but he regularly used to ask where he would spend the next night. The wives understood that he wanted to spend his remaining time with Aisha. They readily gave up their rights to make him feel at ease. Thus he came to be stationed in the room of Aisha, R.A. His condition got steadily worse. Aisha got fully involved in nursing him day and night. She used to recite the same prayers and blow over him as she had seen him do for other sick people. Now the end had come. The Prophet, SAW, was resting against Aisha, R.A., when Abdur Rahman, R.A., walked in with a miswak. When the Prophet, SAW, looked longingly at the miswak, Aisha understood what he desired. She softened it for him by chewing on it and gently gave it to him. In a few moments, he pulled his hand from Aisha's hand and said, "Allahumma rafiqul Allah." 23. Allah is the best friend. A few minutes had passed when Aisha felt his body to be heavy. She glanced at his eyes to find them wide open. Gently she laid down his head on the pillow and started to sob. The Prophet, SAW, was buried in the same little room which was the house of Aisha, R.A. Aisha, the teacher of the Ummah. After becoming a widow, Aisha, R.A., did not give in to wailing and lamenting, nor did she talk endlessly about the Prophet, SAW, with whomever she met. She threw her heart and soul in the education of the Ummah in the ways of the Sunnah and the understanding of Deen. Her mind was imprinted with the treasures of the prophetic knowledge by being his constant companion. Now she wanted to transmit it to the Ummah. Her room became the first madrasa in the world for the education of Hadith. The correct transmission of the Hadith became the focus of her existence. The first part of her life was spent in learning the religion from the Prophet, SWA, and the rest she wanted to spend in spreading her knowledge. She did such a good job that she is considered among the foremost Hadith relators till today. Only 5 companions topped her in the number of Hadiths related. In the books of Hadith, 2,210 traditions are attributed to her. Out of these, 285 are included in the books of Muslim and Bukhari. The rest are present in other books. Her ahadith in the book of Imam Hanbal are enough to be compiled into a separate book. During the caliphate of Abu Bakr, Aisha, R.A., was considered quite an expert in religious matters. Even Hazrat Umar during his caliphate used to consult Aisha on different issues. He himself had been a close companion of the Prophet, SAW, well-versed in the Sunnah of the Prophet, SAW, and strict in adherence of principles in the compilation of a hadith. Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, during his caliphate, used to send messengers from Damascus to ask Aisha about different matters. The famous hadith relator Masruq swears that he saw eminent companions flock to Aisha's house to consult her opinion. She achieved so much distinction in the science of hadith and fiqh that men, women, and young boys used to flock to her residence in search of the truth. The reason behind this was that Aisha, R.A., was a truly remarkable woman. She had special qualities which marked her as no ordinary scholar: depth of knowledge and insight. Destiny had great plans for Aisha, R.A., who proved to be a blessing for the Muslim Ummah. Besides possessing an amazing memory, she had the capability of getting to the crux of the matter, be it a legal matter or a political one. She also used to evaluate issues from every angle, thus her depth of knowledge was stunning. We can see from some examples what a truly remarkable mind she possessed. Once when she heard the tradition related by Abdullah bin Umar, R.A., and Abu Sa'id Khudri, R.A., that the Prophet, SAW, had advised sacrificial meat to be consumed within 3 days, she refuted the tradition in these words: "We used to marinate the meat with salt and leave it, and present the same to the Prophet, SAW, in Medina. The Prophet, SAW, said, 'Do not eat it after 3 days.' This was definitely not an order, but he wanted the people to share the meat with others." Hazrat Aisha was very concerned about conveying the exact words of the Quran and the Hadiths, along with their context, so that people would understand the logic and wisdom behind the Islamic injunctions. Hence, whenever she heard of a tradition without any reference to the context, and there was danger of it being misinterpreted, she used to step forward to clear the misconception. She corrected the following hadith related by Abdullah bin Umar and Abdullah bin Abbas. The Prophet, SAW, said that the dead body is tormented by the wailing of its family. Aisha refused to accept these words and argued that the Prophet, SAW, had never said something like that. The actual incident was that once he happened to pass by a dead Jew. His family was loudly lamenting his death. He stated, "They wail over him and he is in torment." She further said, "The Quran is sufficient for you, and Allah says that no other shall bear the burden of another." Hence, Aisha, R.A., not only corrected the mistake but also stated an important rule to adhere to while judging the veracity of a hadith. She set right a number of hadiths narrated by eminent companions, which were misunderstood because of sticking to just the literal meaning without understanding their context. She never hesitated in stating her difference of opinion against the judgment of trusted scholarly companions. She used to forward such logical and sound proofs to back her decisions that others had no choice but to accept her viewpoint. Acquaintance with Sunnah and deep understanding of the Prophet's disposition. Aisha, R.A., spent a considerable amount of time with the Prophet, She understood his personality very well. She had a constant eye on the religious commandments and the wisdom behind them. Therefore, she recognized why the Prophet, had issued certain orders and on what grounds. Also, she knew which of his sunnah had a religious connotation, and which were just personal to him, and not recommended as a means for earning reward. Some companions like Ibn Abbas, R.A., have termed all the Sunnah acts as meritorious, whether personal or otherwise, and he doggedly followed these to the last, right down to the smallest act that the Prophet SAW had executed during his expeditions. If the Prophet SAW had performed ablution without reason at a certain point, he would follow suit. As opposed to this, Aisha classified as Sunnah only those acts which had been encouraged or ordered by the Prophet SAW for the purpose of earning reward. Once when there was an argument over whether it was a Sunnah to stop at Ibta during Hajj proceedings, she answered, "It is not a Sunnah to stop at Ibta. The only reason the Prophet SAW stopped there was because it was easy for him to proceed from that place." Aisha R.A. used to deduce intelligent conclusions because of her close acquaintance with the personality of the Prophet SAW. She used to ascertain what would have been the stance of the Prophet SAW in such and such a situation had he been alive. The Prophet SAW had allowed women to come to the mosque and had specifically asked men not to bar them from entering the places of worship. In the later years, when women's behavior changed for the worse with time and conditions, Aisha used to remark, "If the Prophet SAW had been alive today and observed the condition of the Muslim women, he would have forbidden women from the mosque, just like the Jewish women had been stopped earlier." The interpretation of the Quran and command over Arabic language. The Quran had been revealed in Arabic. The companions, being Arabs, well understood the book. In linguistic terms, though, a few had superiority over others. Aisha R.A. was one of them. She was an expert in written and spoken Arabic and was an eloquent speaker. She well understood the idiomatic phrases, day-to-day usage, and poetic nuances of the Arabic script. Hence, she was proficient at the elucidation of the Quranic verses. Once her nephew Urwa asked about the Quranic verse, "The hills of Safa and Marwa are among the signs of the Lord. So whosoever performs Hajj or Umrah of the Kaaba, there is no harm if he ambulates between them." It appeared to him from this verse that there was no harm if one did not do the rounds between Safa and Marwa. Aisha told him that he was in the wrong. If this had been the meaning, the Quranic verse would have run as follows: "If you don't do the ambulation between them, there is no harm." Then she expounded that these verses were revealed for the Ansar. The Aus and Khizraj tribes, before converting to Islam, used to proclaim, "Long live Manat," and used to find it sinful to do the rounds of Safa and Marwa. After Islam, they sought clarification of this matter from the Prophet SAW, and so Allah revealed these verses to make clear the relevant action. When Abu Bakr bin Abdur Rahman, R.A., heard of this illumination thrown on this ayah by Aisha, he marveled that truly that was knowledge. Caution in acceptance of hadith. Mother of the believers, Aisha R.A. was extremely meticulous while passing on a tradition of the Prophet SAW, and used to relate the context as well, so there would be no place for distortion. At the same time, she was circumspect about accepting any hadith. If she heard the tradition from a third source, she would check with the original companion who had narrated it. If a person came to inquire about a tradition that was not her own, she used to send him to the original source. The purpose was to eliminate third-party information transfer in order to increase the conviction of the hadith. She wanted to guide the ummah towards the truth. In spite of her profound knowledge of religion, if she felt that someone could better satisfy the inquirer, she used to pass him on to that person. One person asked about rubbing hands over the socks in wuzu. She sent him to Ali, R.A., because he had traveled more often with the Prophet SAW. Aisha's homeschool, the Prophet SAW, had inculcated in his companions a thirst for knowledge and a keen desire for its propagation. As time passed, a few companions died soon after the Prophet SAW. Some attained martyrdom in the various battles fought, and some got busy in governing the different conquered territories. Several of them migrated to other cities. In the city of Medina, Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar, R.A., Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas, R.A., Hazrat Abu Huraira, R.A., and Hazrat Aisha, R.A., were the outstanding personalities who dedicated their lives to the spread of religious education. Hazrat Aisha, R.A., rose to eminence in Medina because of her exceptional scholastic aptitude and dedication to the cause of Islam. Among those who flocked to her cabin were prominent companions, as well as common people who wanted a practical solution to their ordinary problems. Women, young boys, and Mehram men were regulars inside her room. The rest used to sit in Masjid-e-Nabi outside her door. There used to be a curtain at the door. This room was the center of spiritual discourses. Some of Aisha's nephews and nieces achieved fame as Islamic scholars in later years due to her guidance and teaching. Notable among the nephews are Qasim bin Abdullah, Abdullah bin Muhammad, Abu Salam, Urwa bin Zubair, Qasim bin Zubair. Among her nieces, Hafsa bint Abdurrahman, Asma bint Abdurrahman, and Aisha bint Talha became renowned for their knowledge of Islam. Besides routine sessions at this homeschool, Hajj was the time when Aisha's tent would be swamped with students and ordinary questioners. All the pilgrims had access to her vast reservoir of knowledge. Especially women used to swarm around her like bees. They used to come to her for their various difficulties, and she used to give them a befitting response, supporting of right and denouncing of wrong. When Aisha, R.A., gave sermons, she used to deliver talks and discourses to suit the occasion. She used to dislike talking about religion all the time and used to advise her students to be sensible and wise while preaching. Yes, she was particular about her duty of encouraging right and the prohibition of wrong. She was particularly watchful over the conduct and character of those who had a close association with her. Once Hafsa bint Abdurrahman, her niece, came to her house wearing a transparent dupatta. Angrily, Aisha tore the offending head cover to pieces. Then she reprimanded her niece. "Are you unaware of the injunctions given by Allah in Surah An-Nur?" On another occasion, she chanced to see her brother Abdur-Rahman bin Abi Bakr, R.A., do his ablutions hastily, and she told him, "Abdur-Rahman, perform your ablutions properly. I heard the Prophet say that the parts of the body which don't get wet properly in wuzu are engulfed by the hellfire." 24. Aisha in the battlefield. Aisha, R.A., used to care deeply about the Muslim Ummah. She used to keep herself abreast of the political changes in the Muslim empire and relentlessly try to perform her duty of advising good and admonishing evil. During the caliphate of Abu Bakr, R.A., the political atmosphere was peaceful after the apostates had been defeated. Constant victories of the Muslims contributed to a high morale. Hazrat Abu Bakr, R.A., and subsequently Hazrat Umar, R.A., had acquired total control over the economic and political matters of state. They were far-sighted and used to quell any trouble in its initial stage before it became a threat to the Muslim Ummah. The early years of Hazrat Usman's R.A. rule were also free from any strife. Towards the end of his caliphate, though, a lot of prominent companions had departed from the world, borders of the Muslim state had spread out considerably, and conquering the non-Arab territories had created differences between Arabs and non-Arabs. Some mutinous elements rose to the forefront that wanted to spread mischief in the empire and divide it into fragments. The founder of the Sabai sect, Ibn Saba, who was originally a Jew, was successful in collecting around him those Muslims who, for personal gain or tribal loyalty, were willing to put the state in political turmoil. This group charged Usman, R.A., with nepotism and his governors with false accusations and created havoc in the state. Usman, R.A., tried his best to reconcile with these elements and even answered all their bogus allegations. But these rebels were bent on creating disorder in the ranks of the Muslims. Taking advantage of Usman's kind and lax nature, they infiltrated into Medina. The companions tried to calm the miscreants down, but the dissidents wanted to remove Usman, R.A., from the caliphate, which was not an acceptable solution. Eventually, they surrounded Usman's house and kept him prisoner, and after a few days mercilessly murdered him. Under very uneasy and tense circumstances, the majority of the citizens of Medina, including the rebels, gave pledge to Hazrat Ali, R.A., and he became the fourth caliph of the Muslim empire. Hazrat Zubair, R.A., and Hazrat Talha, R.A., were trusted companions of the Prophet, S.W.A., and among those 10 who had been promised paradise during his lifetime. They had sworn loyalty to Hazrat Ali, but the rebels who were roaming around freely disturbed them. They wanted an immediate arrest of the murderers of Usman, which did not seem imminent. Hence, one day in the cover of the night, they left for Mecca. On the way, they met Aisha, R.A., who was on her way home after performing the Hajj. She had received the alarming news of Usman's assassination. They both apprised her of the turbulence and dissensions in Medina. Whoever met Aisha, R.A., in the next few days would relate more tales of turmoil and strife in the Prophet's SWA city. The leaders of the dissensions who were the cause of the murder of Usman till yesterday played up to Ali to win his sympathy in order to avoid blame and punishment. It was not easy to identify these assailants. In the discussions that followed between Aisha, Talha, and Zubair, it was decided unanimously that Usman's killers would have to pay blood money immediately. Otherwise, if the assassination of such a noteworthy caliph would be left ignored, the Islamic Empire would be in shambles. A brother of Aisha, R.A., Muhammad bin Abi Bakr, was also involved in the cold-hearted killing of the respected caliph, and he was also one of the many who broke into his house. Aisha did not give any importance to her blood ties and focused her attention on saving the repute of the caliphate. Aisha, R.A., appealed to the Muslim masses to come forward and take revenge for Usman's massacre. Her fiery speeches had a profound impact on the people. Hordes of Muslims came to join her in her march to Medina for justice. On the way, they changed their direction towards Basra because the majority of the people felt that more supporters should be enlisted in the army from Basra, Kufa, and Iraq. During the journey, they passed the lake of Hawab. The dogs here started barking at the commotion. Hazrat Aisha, R.A., suddenly remembered a prediction of the Prophet, SAW, according to which the dogs of Hawab would bark at one of his wives, 25. She was stunned that she was the one referred to. She immediately decided to turn back and give up her whole plan of action against the caliphate. Some people swore to her that this place was not Hawab. Hazrat Zubair was astonished that after coming this far, Aisha, R.A., wanted to back out. He convinced her by saying that perhaps Allah wanted to make peace among the Muslim factions through her. When the camp reached Basra, Aisha, R.A., held talks with the nobles and elite in the city. Some sided with her and some decided to remain neutral. There ensued an argument between the supporters of Aisha and the governor of Basra, Usman bin Hanif. Aisha constantly advised them to remain calm and patient, and tried to explain that the whole purpose behind the campaign was to establish peace and safety in the Muslim empire. In the meanwhile, some hostile elements among the opponents attacked Aisha's camp. The spokesperson for Aisha beseeched the enemies to stop fighting, but they would not listen. Finally, to save their own skins, Aisha's army also fought back, and the battle began. The skirmish ended with the peace-seekers as the successful ones, and Aisha, R.A., gained control of Basra. The Battle of the Camel. Hazrat Ali, R.A., was apprised of the expedition against the caliphate. He left Medina with 700 men, and another 7,000 joined him from Kufa. By the time he reached Basra, he had gathered a force of 20,000 men. Aisha, R.A., was stationed in Basra with 3,000 soldiers. To prevent the two sides from warfare, the impartial Muslims tried to bring about reconciliation, and both the parties agreed to come to an understanding. No one wanted two Muslim armies to shed each other's blood. The matter seemed to be resolved, and it appeared as if the condition of the Muslim state would stabilize. The rebels present in both parties knew that if there were a peaceful settlement, then they would be taken to task. They made a silent attack in the dark of the night on Aisha's army. In the state of confusion that ensued, no one knew who was the instigator. Both parties thought they had been deceived. Aisha, R.A., climbed into her iron howdah, and Ali, R.A., climbed his mount. Both tried to stop their armies from fighting, but things had veered out of control and the battle had started in earnest. Aisha's howdah was in the thick of the battle, and the command of the army was under Talha, R.A., and Zubair, R.A. In the heat of the battle, Ali, R.A., told Zubair, "O Abu Abdullah, do you remember the day when the Prophet SAW asked you if you took Ali as a friend and you replied in the affirmative? Then the Prophet SAW told you that one day you would fight with him in the wrong." Zubair, R.A., recalled this incident and, full of remorse, he left the battle immediately, saying that Ali should have reminded him earlier. He asked his son Abdullah bin Zubair to do the same, but he refused. With a weary heart, he left the scene of the battle by himself, but unfortunately some miscreant murdered him on the way. Talha, R.A., had also by now realized the error of his decision, and he wanted to separate himself from the battle. But the conspirators got wind of his intentions and shot a poisoned arrow at him, which resulted in his martyrdom. Now only Aisha, R.A., was left in charge of the force. Her supporters had surrounded her howdah and were bravely defending her with their lives. Ali, R.A., gave orders to cut off her camel's legs because he realized that the senseless slaughter of Muslims would go on as long as Aisha, R.A., was in the howdah. As soon as the camel of Aisha, R.A., fell, Her soldiers lost all hope because their morale was already down after the loss of Zubair and Talha. The battle ended in favor of Ali, R.A. Soon after the battle, Ali, R.A., sent Aisha's brother to ask her how she was feeling. He also proclaimed general amnesty for all. Then he visited Aisha, R.A., himself, and expressed his desire for her well-being. She replied that she was fine. After taking care of her needs for a few days, he bade her farewell and dispatched to go with her to Medina her brother and some other respectable women. He personally came to see her off for some distance. When parting, Aisha, R.A., expressed her sorrow and anguish at the terrible state of events that had taken place. She said that she had no bad feelings for Ali, R.A., neither now nor in the past, except some petty issues that used to arise occasionally between the mother-in-law and the son-in-law. Ali, R.A., also uttered words of respect and praise for her, and the group left for Medina. Aisha, R.A., always regretted her decision to go to war with Ali, R.A. She was never comfortable with the role she had played in the circumstances. She used to remember this incident and speak out in regret. "I wish I were a stone or a tree." And when she used to read the verse, "O wives of the Prophet, stay quietly within your homes," she used to weep until her scarf would be soaked with tears. After this event, she once again started to take active part in teaching and educating the Muslim masses in the matters of religion. Aisha's death. In her 66th year, Aisha, R.A., fell seriously ill and people came to visit her to inquire about her health. When asked how she felt, she used to say she was fine, but she knew that she would not recover from this illness. The daughter of Abu Bakr, R.A., the beloved wife of the Prophet, SAW, and one of the best Islamic scholars ever, was so anxious about her fate in the hereafter that she used to say, "I wish I was a stone. I wish I was a herb in a forest." Ibn Abbas visited her in her last days and mentioned her achievements, but she replied, "Ibn Abbas, relieve me of these tributes. I would be happy not existing." He tried to make her feel better and reassured her that she was about to join the truthful ones, referring to the Prophet, and Abu Bakr. Before breathing her last, she made a will to the effect that she should be buried in Jannatul Baqi along with the other wives of the Prophet, SAW. Somebody remarked that she should be buried in her room along with the Prophet, SAW, and his two illustrious companions. Her reply to this was, "In that case, I'll have to let go of my previous deeds and start afresh," meaning she was not fit to be buried alongside with them. On the 17th of Ramadan, 58 Hijri, in the last days of the rule of Amir Muawiyah, Aisha, R.A., joined her Lord after breathing her last. According to her will, her last rituals were performed immediately and preparations were made for the burial. On hearing of her death, the women of Medina rushed to her house. There were so many people in her funeral procession that people commented that they had never seen such a big procession in the dark of the night. Abu Huraira led her namaz-e-janaza. Her nephews lowered her into her grave in al-Baqi. There was mourning in Medina when people got the news of her death. They were so stricken with grief at her loss that when a dweller of Medina was asked about her bereavement, he replied, "All those were affected by her passing away, who considered her as their mother." Aisha's high stature and unique qualities. Aisha, R.A., was an exemplary character in the whole Muslim Ummah on the basis of her outstanding personality and achievements. She was born in the cradle of Islam and had never been under the shadow of disbelief. She had an extraordinary father in Abu Bakr, R.A., who was the first to accept Islam among men and the closest friend of the Prophet, SAW. When Aisha, R.A., was betrothed to the Prophet, SAW, this bond was further strengthened. Before this, the Prophet, SAW, had seen a dream in which Gabriel had presented Aisha's picture wrapped in silk to him and informed him that she was to be his wife in this world and the hereafter. 26. She was the only wife of the Prophet, SAW, who had not been married before. She was proud to be the beloved wife of the Prophet, SAW. When returning from the Battle of Silasil, Hazrat Amr bin As asked the Prophet, SAW, whom he loved more than anyone on earth. Without any hesitation, the Prophet, SAW, said, "Aisha." Ammar insisted that he wanted to know his preference among men. The Prophet, SAW, replied, "Aisha's father." 27. The story of the love of the Prophet, SAW, for Aisha, R.A., was so well known that people used to present their gifts to the Prophet SAW when it was Aisha's turn. The other wives were not too pleased when they noticed this, and after consulting with each other, they sent Salama to request the Prophet SAW to tell people to not be specific about a particular wife's turn when sending their gifts. Salama presented this appeal before her husband, who disregarded the issue. At the next instance, when she again approached the same issue, the Prophet SAW again ignored her. The third time, he frankly told her, "O Salama, do not bother me in the matter of Aisha. Allah is a witness. Besides Aisha's bed, revelation does not come to me when I am with any one of you." 28. Aisha, R.A., also confirmed that angels used to come to and go from her house, and she used to be lying with the Prophet SAW in the same blanket when the revelations used to come. Once the Prophet SAW told her, "O Aisha, Gabriel is here and he conveys you salam." She also greeted him, and further added that the Prophet SAW could glimpse what any other human being could not. 29. Aisha, R.A., has the distinction of being the cause of several revelations that proved to be of immense benefit to the Ummah. Once, while accompanying the Prophet SAW on a battle, Aisha had worn a necklace that she had borrowed from her sister. Incidentally, she dropped it on the way. The Prophet SAW sent some companions to look for it. The time for prayer approached, and because of lack of water, these companions said their prayers without ablution. When they informed the Prophet SAW about what they had done, the verses about tayammum were revealed. Usaid bin Huzair said, "May Allah bless you for this gift. Allah is a witness that whenever you have undergone a trial, He has revealed verses to help you out and has simultaneously provided a blessing for the Muslim Ummah." 30. Previously, when the hypocrites accused Aisha, R.A., of being unchaste, Allah had revealed verses that proved her innocence in the Quran, which will be read by Muslims till the Day of Judgment, and which provided a relief and safeguard for innocent, chaste Muslim women for all times to come. Another event occurred at the time of Hajj. When Aisha, R.A., reached Mecca, her menstruation commenced and she started to cry. The Prophet SAW asked her to don the ihram for Hajj instead of Umrah, and to complete the rituals of Hajj apart from Tawaf and Sa'i. Afterwards, he sent her brother Abdul Rahman, R.A., with her, some distance away, to a place called Tan'im, where she again entered the state of ihram and then completed her Umrah. 31. In this way, a very important issue concerning women was addressed. This is a very common occurrence at pilgrimage time and was a matter of great relief for Muslim women. Today we find a mosque called Masjid-e-Aisha at Tan'im. Until today, people go there to commence their Umrah. When the Prophet SAW was overcome with disease at the end of his life, he used to continue to give turns to his wives, as was his normal practice. But he used to inquire where he would spend the next night, as he wanted to spend his remaining time with Aisha, R.A. She related that when he came to reside in her house, he became more relaxed and peaceful. 32. Aisha, R.A., used to be proud of the fact that in his last days, the Prophet SAW drank from the same vessel where her mouth had touched it. None of his other spouses enjoyed this blessing. After that, he died with his head in Aisha's lap, and he was buried in her room. Aisha, R.A., had dreamt before his death that 3 moons had descended into her house. She mentioned this to her father. When the Prophet SAW was buried in her room, he remarked, "This is one of those moons, and he is the best of them." This was a big honor for Aisha because every Muslim carries in his heart the desire to pay homage to the Prophet's SAW grave, which is none other but the room of Aisha, R.A. We have mentioned earlier that when she was still a child, Gabriel had brought her picture wrapped in silk to the Prophet SAW and informed him that she was to be his wife in this life and the hereafter. Aisha wanted further confirmation than this, so she asked the Prophet SAW who would be his wives in Jannah. He understood the question and replied, "You are one of them." 33. Aisha's superiority also stems from the fact that 1/4 of religion reached us through Aisha. She is rightly the biggest scholar among Muslim women. The Prophet SAW stated, "Among men there have been many great ones, but among women, leaving aside Maryam bint Imran and Asiya the wife of Pharaoh, no great woman was born." The superiority of Aisha over women is like that of Thurid over other foods. 34. A role model for Muslim women for all times to come. Aisha's life is a perfect ideal for Muslim women to emulate. It reminds us that the responsibility of a woman is not only in the capacity of a housewife. Besides performing her domestic chores, she can play an active role in the improvement and reformation of the society. Abul Hasan Ali Nadvi holds in his book Women and Service to Islam that a number of verses in the Quran point to women's role in education, service of Islam, cooperation in works of charity, and building of a sound society. The Quran does not differentiate between men and women in terms of good deeds. Usually when a good quality of a mu'min is mentioned in the Quran, extra words are added to include women as well. These qualities are not just related to matters of worship, but include different fields and matters. Believers of other faiths and philosophies do not equate men with women and cannot fathom that women have the same capabilities as men. These minds have always biased against women and have excluded women from many fields. They have not accepted the equality between the two sexes, let alone admitting the superiority of women in many cases. To take the discussion further, we admit that it is obvious that women are not physically endowed with the same strength as men, but they have been given the same senses, hands and feet, memory and brain power. These are the faculties which, when used properly, lead to the achievement of different skills and expertise. And then comes the recognition according to the level of work performed. Often women have complained that their husbands don't consult them in decision-making. Women should realize that Allah has not given them innumerable faculties merely to impress their in-laws and others, or to while away their time running around in shopping malls. Their abilities should not be wasted on a frivolous lifestyle. Yes, if they themselves don't want to be a productive part of the society, then they deserve the treatment they get. Today's woman has succeeded in getting equal rights with men to a certain extent. Thanks, unfortunately, this liberation is not geared to the improvement in the quality of life, but towards women trying to fit into a modern lifestyle and towards proving themselves superior over men. Islam does not encourage competition between men and women, but it wants an atmosphere of mutual cooperation so that a just society can result. The sphere of women is more limited than that of men, but no less important. A woman can play an important role in the society besides attending to her domestic responsibilities. Nowhere can we find a better example of this perfect blend than in the life of Hazrat Aisha, R.A. No one can lift a finger of criticism against any aspect of her life. She got married off at a very early age and shouldered the responsibilities of a household. Admittedly, she was not an expert at domestic chores, but she tried her best to fulfill the requirements and expectations of her husband. Besides complete obedience and devotion to her partner, she wove a bond of such love and affection around him that her family life was enviable. In addition to performing her religious obligations, she was very attentive to her supererogatory acts of worship. This state continued after the prophets saw death, whether it be night worship or morning prayers, the Taraweeh prayers of Ramadan or the extra fasts. Sitting in isolation, itikaf, towards the end of Ramadan or the extra Hajj, she was not absent on any occasion. She was so repentant before Allah that once she was fasting on the day of Arafat, the heat got to her, and she was being sprinkled with water when her brother, Abdur Rahman bin Abi Bakr, suggested that she break her fast. She was surprised and replied, "Why? After I heard from the Prophet, saw, that keeping a fast on the day of Arafat releases one from her sins from a year of sins, can I break my fast?" By nature, she was a brave and courageous lady. When she used to hear of the amazing rewards of those that perform jihad, she used to feel envious. When she requested for permission for jihad, the prophets told her that a woman's jihad was Hajj 35. After hearing this statement, she was extremely conscientious about performing the annual pilgrimage, so much so that rarely a year passed in which she did not proceed to Mecca with the pilgrims. After going through Aisha's record, one realizes that this was no ordinary woman leading an ordinary life. Her life went through tremendous ordeals right from childhood. Her family was subjected to ill treatment from the unbelievers of Mecca, as it was closest to the Prophet, SWA. When she got married and started her marital life in Medina, the warfare with the unbelievers commenced. She did not keep herself aloof from these happenings. Aisha, R.A., used to provide water and first aid to those injured in the battle. The hypocrites' schemes were also a constant source of tension. Incidentally, she became the victim of one of these schemes, only to be proved innocent by the revelations from the heavens above. She might be young in age, but she was never irresponsible. She underwent the trial just as a mature woman would, with full understanding of the implications and sensitivity of the issue. Her tears would not stop and she had sleepless nights, but she had kept her tongue in check. The only words she uttered in her defense were, "I will acquire the best of patience." Emotionally speaking, a woman can bear serious strains in the marital relationships, but it is very difficult to share one's husband with another woman, let alone a number of women. Although she was the beloved of the prophets, SWA, yet she had to bear with patience his just and fair nature. He used to divide his time meticulously among his wives. What she must have gone through, we can only try to imagine. When she was attacked by pangs of jealousy, this never got the better of her, and she never wished the other wives ill. She used to praise them with an open heart. She never resorted to petty quarrels. Once the prophet, SWA, got annoyed with Zainab, R.A., over some matter, and she came to Aisha to plead her case with the prophet, SWA. Aisha dressed herself with care and spoke with such skillfulness that the matter was resolved. Nature dealt her a heavy blow when she got widowed at the tender age of 18. Besides the sorrow and anguish at being separated from her husband, there was neither wealth to carry her on, nor any child to console her in her grief. In another couple of years, her loving father also passed away. Another woman in her predicament might have wallowed away in self-grief for the rest of her life, but not this courageous lady. Hats off to her for her patience and gratefulness to Allah throughout this tough ordeal. If the story of Aisha had ended here, it was sufficient to prove her as a woman of strength and wisdom inordinate. But instead of losing control of her life, she determined to dedicate her life to the cause of Islam. The verses of the Quran that ordered the wives of the Prophet, SWA, to stay in their houses, could have been used by her to lead a sedentary life. She could have just busied herself in her personal acts of worship. Remaining within the limits that Allah had prescribed for her, she started a program of Islamic tarbiyah right from her doorstep. During the caliphate of Abu Bakr, R.A., she had achieved eminence as a scholar in her own right. She did justice to her assumed responsibility of spreading deen. Her knowledge was not of the superficial kind. Tirmidhi reports that the companions did not face any issue, but Aisha, R.A., had a solution for it. Aisha, R.A., was very confident by nature. She never hesitated to speak the truth, be it against herself. The amazing thing is that she did not receive her education at any institute or school, but imbibed it day in and day out from the very fountainhead of prophethood. She was also skillful in poetry, history, and tib medicine. It can occur to the reader that Aisha, R.A., achieved so much because she was childless and did not have the responsibilities of a mother. It is true that she had no offspring, but Allah had conferred upon her the title of Mother of the Believers, and she did full justice to this role. She felt for the Ummah very deeply, and that is why she had made a decision to take vengeance for Usman's murder in order to bring peace to the Ummah. Though later she was extremely sorry at her action, yet in this whole incident no one doubted her sincerity towards the Muslim nation. This was her sole political endeavor. When asked for her opinion on a political matter, she used to state her opinion and then stay aloof from the situation. She had dedicated herself to social objectives. She used to bring up orphans and educate them. She used to arrange their marriages, too. She used to spend generously on the poor. No needy person was turned away empty-handed from her door. Aisha, R.A., used to give first preference to others' needs over her own. She kept just one outfit for herself, which she used to wash and wear again and again. After the initial period of hardship that the early immigrants had to face, there began a series of conquests, which led to large amounts of booty being poured into the Muslim treasury. The righteous caliphs appointed a monthly amount for the wives of the Prophet, SWA, and also gave them a share of the booty. Another woman in the place of Aisha, R.A., might have fulfilled her material desires with this income, but the influence of the Prophet, SWA, had completely wiped out any desire for worldly belongings. Huge sums amounting to as much as 100,000 dirhams at a time were received by her, which were distributed among the needy the same day before sunset. Once her maid reminded her that she should have saved something for evening meal as she was fasting. Aisha replied, "You should have prompted me earlier." Such was the state of her generosity. One day her beloved nephew commented on the charitable nature of his aunt and said that something should be done to control her hand in giving alms. Aisha, RA, got very upset at this remark and swore that she would never speak to him again. After much persuasion, she relented and started speaking to him again. As expiation for breaking an oath, she freed many slaves. Aisha, RA, had a forgiving nature and used to admit her faults easily. She was popular among women because of her refined character, good manners, and kind nature. She was an independent-minded lady, but not an egotist. Her scholarly achievements and intellectual mind put her at par with the best of male scholars. In fact, she even surpassed most of them. It would have been no surprise if she had looked down upon other women for achieving so little educational prowess. But Aisha was never embarrassed to be a woman, and she always stood up for the rights of women. In the life of the Prophet, SWA, women used to ask her to approach him for the solution of their problems. Some issues were very private female matters, and it seemed awkward to talk to the Prophet SWA about these matters. In these cases, Aisha, RRA, was a tremendous help to them. Even after the Prophet's SWA death, she used to always protect women from being abused or looked down upon. Once she heard that a few companions had been quoted as saying that prayers were invalidated if a woman, dog, or a donkey passed in front of the one who prays. She was furious and said, "So a woman is a mere animal. How could you place us in the same category as donkeys and dogs? The Prophet used to say his prayers with me lying in front of him. When he wanted to prostrate, I used to gather my feet together." In the words of Syed Suleiman Nadvi, the biggest favor of Aisha upon mankind is that she taught the world how a Muslim woman could, within the limits of the veil, play an active role in intellectual, religious, social, and political life. Islam has granted women a high status and has elevated them from their previously downtrodden position. The life story of Aisha, RA, is a practical implementation of the kind of life that a woman should lead within an Islamic framework.